me start.
All right, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Yes? I have to hold it a little bit closer. Okay. Is that better? Oh, okay. All right, well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the New Jersey Regional Family Support Planning Council's quarterly meeting. We're really happy you're here in person and online. Our presentation today is called Your Day, Your Way. And we really want to focus on that idea. The theme for the day is choice, and that every one of us has the right and the need to make choices about our own lives. So we'll be talking a lot about different ways that we've done that, and we will talk about ways other families have done that, and we hope that you'll share your ideas as well. So who are we and why are we doing this? It's important to know that we are all family members. We are all people that are in the thick of this, and we are all people that are learning from each other. It's really important for families and individuals to connect because I think that's where we get some of our best information. You'll hear from families and individuals today who have created their own path based on their vision for a great life. And we really hope that you'll take the opportunity to share some of the great things and great ideas that you've had, and even some of the challenges. This is not an easy road. There's not a black and white path, but I think through sharing and connecting with each other, we all can move forward. Okay, so I wanted to kind of clear up some terms first, so that we're all on the same page as just a little bit of an introduction. And then I'll be joined by Melanie and we'll kind of get the meat of the presentation going. So self-determination is really it's a philosophy. It is not a program. It's the belief and the mission and the vision that every individual, all of us in this room, all of our family members, have the right to shape their own life. Every individual has the right to set goals for themselves. Those goals should not be imposed on them. We all make our own decisions and our own goals. When I grew up, my career path was not imposed on me. It was my choice. What I like to do with my time is my choice. That is true for every individual. Every individual has the right to make their own choices about how they work, they play, and they enjoy life. Self-determination is the philosophy that guides everything that we do, and it's what we want to see for our family members or individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. This philosophy is clearly adopted by the Division of Developmental Disabilities. So if you know Tricia Brennan and you know the work that she's doing, and really the division as a whole, their mission statement is very clear. The Division of Developmental Disabilities assures opportunities for individuals with developmental disabilities to receive quality supports, participate meaningfully in their communities, and exercise their right to make choices. It's important to know that that's the division's philosophy because that's what you want to go into discussions with the division and how your day or your loved one's day becomes their way. So self-direction is defined by Medicaid as one of the New Jersey's 2 waiver programs that for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The division implemented self-direction as this specific option. So self-direction in terms of New Jersey's Division of Developmental Disabilities is a program, unlike self-determination, which is a philosophy. Individuals can manage their own budget in collaboration with a support coordinator to create the life that they want. And we're going to talk a lot today about creating a vision for your loved one, because in order to make those choices, you have to know where you want to go and you have to communicate that to all the people that support your loved one, starting with the support coordinator. The individual chooses the supports and the services that let them realize their vision for a good life. Now, I know that sounds easy, and we all know it's not easy, but I think with the support of other families and with clear articulation of what that vision is, I think, and perseverance, takes a lot of perseverance. I think that's, we can get there. So the other waiver in New Jersey is the community care waiver, which is defined by Medicaid as one of the two New Jersey waiver programs. Self-determination equally applies to those on the community care waiver. So if your loved one is in a provider-managed setting, it doesn't take away self-determination. It's not program determination, it's self-determination. And I think that's really important to keep that in mind. Individuals on the community care waiver can access components of self-direction, and we're going to talk about that today, why that's so important. My son is in a provider-managed setting, but he does access aspects of self-direction. So in order to create the life that's good for him, we had to kind of bring in components of both. The community care waiver participants are not defined by the program, I just said that, I'm repeating myself, in which they participate. It's defined by the individual, and sometimes it takes a little bit of discussion to have that happen. My son is with YCS. They're the agency that run his group home. I brought to them the idea of having a conversation with the house manager and the house staff about what is a person-centered plan for Michael. And I brought them the Charting the Life course tools, which we're going to be talking about later. They've now been implemented agency-wide. So I think your advocacy makes a big difference. So we're going to now, I'm now going to be joined by Melanie, and we're going to go over there. And we're going to move on and talk a little bit more about how this works for both of our sons and for other individuals. Yeah, I'm fine. All right, so now again we're going to say, can you hear us? Yes. Keep talking.
Is this any better? A little, okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to move this in the center, if that's okay.
And we can flip it
Yeah,
back and forth.
yeah. So
Okay.
I totally feel like
Oh,
I'm
we have
invading
two
your
of them
space.
now. Look at this.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, sounds good. We can speak directly. Is that good? All right, very good. Okay, so I'm going to let Melanie jump off here.
Perfect. So, Kathy, well, thank you for having me, everyone. My name's Melanie McGackin. I have 2 adult children. My son, Logan, is 27 years old. Currently, Logan lives in a provider-managed group home where he is living a very person-centered life, and that has not always been an easy task to arrange, as we know. We actually have formed a fabulous relationship with his provider agency, specifically their group home manager, some of the support staff, and just as important, with the other families in that home. Again, our decision was a very personal choice that we had to make in choosing a provider-managed setting, and it's not the right fit for everyone, right? And I want to make sure that we honor and respect that different families are making different choices for very different reasons, and what's right for you as an individual who may be determining your own life independently, or for you as a family who is supporting someone in determining these choices. What's right for you is right for you, and we want to make sure that we honor and respect that.
I think, too, what's important is what's right for you may change as life stages change. So what's right when your individual comes out of school and into the DDD system may be one thing, but later on as parents age or family members age, it may be something else. And I think that's, again, I think what's true about all of this is it's true for all of us. What was right for me at 20 is not right for me now. So,
Absolutely. And I do want to start by saying I will apologize in advance if there are any advocates, self-advocates here today joining the call. By all means, we make sure that that individual that services are being planned around is at the center of the planning process. Today, I will probably be referring a lot to families because we have a lot of family members in the room and joining us online. But please know we are encompassing the whole team if I say the word families, and that includes the people that know that person the best, but for most, it's that person themselves. So we want to talk a little bit about starting with a vision for a good life. And that really starts with the question of what does a good life look like for this person? Everyone, no matter what their support needs may be, no matter what their diagnosis is, and obviously no matter what residential opportunity that person is living in, whether a provider managed setting or with the family or independently, everyone deserves a person-centered, community-based life. The vision of what a good life looks like is different for everyone, and it's really guided by the person's choices and preferences. So what is important to that person, right? What brings them happiness? What brings them joy? Where are their interests falling? And families quite often have a really important role in making sure that a person's vision is coming to life, right? I know for my son who's 27, I'm involved in his day-to-day schedules, activities, and I do know him best. Even though we have other people that support him full-time, they know him in a different way than I do, and making sure that we're bringing everyone's voices to the table is so important in this process.
you know, I'll just add there, while family members and individuals who speak for themselves know that person best, what I've also learned is I need to listen to the people that are supporting him. Sometimes they come up with a new idea, a new activity, a new thought that I wouldn't have, and I find myself saying, gee, I wouldn't have tried that with Michael, and in the end, it turns out to be something really good.
Absolutely. And I think the people that know the individual in different environments can bring a lot of different information to the table. And when we're connecting those pieces, it's when we're talking about a fulfilling life. So we want to really point out when we're talking about forming a vision of a good life is, again, what are that person's interests, right? What are the relationships that they have with others? Who are they closest with? Sometimes that's family, and absolutely sometimes that's not, right? That could be the individuals that they're living with, long-time friends, so on. We want to talk about someone's hopes and dreams for their future, and that could be short-term or long-term future when we're talking about visions. And what are their current interests, and what are their current routines that keep that person happy and healthy? And again, we really want to focus on what does a good life look like for that person specifically. So do you want to why don't we work through a really quick exercise? I know everyone has some notebooks on the table. If everyone wants to grab a piece of paper and a pen. And for the people at home, please feel free to grab some paper and pen. And we do want to encourage the people at home to please use the chat feature. Is the chat open, Kyoko? It's not. The question? Perfect. So we do have the question and answer portion of the Zoom open. So please feel free to contribute through that, and Kyoko will be able to share any messages. So if we all have a piece of paper, we really want to look at what truly matters to either yourself or your loved one. And we want to stress how a team approach can really help build supports and align supports to someone's interests to build a meaningful life. So for the first step of this activity, we want you to think, again, you could do this for yourself or your loved one. We want you to picture what a really good day looks like. And I want you to write down a few things, if you would. I'm going to give you some questions that you might want to consider. What would you or your loved one be doing during the day? What would you want to be doing during the day? right? Now, if you work and you love your job, that's great, write it down. But if you work and you do not love your job, write down what you would want to do during the day, right? Maybe that's sitting at the beach. We're going to give everyone a couple seconds to do that.
And again, if you're at home and you want to participate, just put your thoughts into the Q&A.
The next prompt I want you to consider is, who would you or your loved one be spending their time with? Who are those people that you or your loved one enjoy being around most? And the next prompt is, what activities make you happiest? And I want you to think about the real life moments, right, when you're answering this, not just the big picture. So the next part I want to work on is what matters most. So we want to really think about 3 things that are most important to either yourself or your loved one. And things you might want to consider could be relationships, interests or hobbies that you might have, favorite activities, of course, or even things such as who makes you feel most safe or comfortable. So write down 3 things that matter most to you. Does anyone want to share what some of the things that they wrote so far? Anyone online also? Please.
Well, I think you would mention it, things today for us. I was just going to say, I was struck by the comment, what's right for us at this age, it evolves, it changes at another age. But I think throughout, and it's generic, but I think it's very meaningful, is having purpose. So for our son, for us, having purpose in your day, and that can unfold in many different things. So for our son, having purpose, in my mind, is a certain, just like others, work that is enjoyable,
Yes.
that allows social interaction with people. I think that's important. And to maintain a routine that also is active and healthy outside of a work environment too.
Fabulous. Thank you. Kyoko, anyone online? Not yet? Okay. There's no pressure online, families, but feel pressured. Contribute? No kidding. So, perfect. So far the list that you have.
We've got one.
Please. Great.
Hi, Pat Greaves. A couple of things that we thought of for our daughter: health, happiness, routine, and adequate food. Those are important to her.
Yes, absolutely.
And we emphasize a lot how we want to bring the individual into the individual is central to this process. Some of us have individuals, my son being one of them, who is not really able to express, certainly verbally, what he wants. And you really need to know him to understand what's important to him. But I think when you take the time, if I were filling this out, pizza would be, at the top of the list, as would mozzarella balls. Swimming would be on the top of the list. Horseback riding would be on the top of the list. and having structure to his day so he knows what to expect. So I think as the team around the individual knows them and shares that information, I think it becomes clearer and clearer, because we don't always have individuals that can express that openly for themselves.
Absolutely. And I want you to look at the list and think about, how would you feel if these were part of your everyday life, right? I would think most of us would feel like it's a welcoming life, right? It's fulfilling. We're going to be happy. But I also want you to look at the list and think about if these things were never incorporated into your life, right? And what you would be missing out if that person didn't have a say, or the people that know them best couldn't communicate for that person what was bringing them happiness and joy, right? So it's so important. And I want to make sure that we're also, right, considering relationships. That's a really important piece to coming up with a vision. Who do you want to do and with? Who do you want to do these preferred activities with? Because my son doesn't want to do his preferred activities with mom, right? He wants to do them with people that he has a better connection with in age, and right, mom's mom, right? So we're going to move on to hopes for the future. So hopes and dreams we want to also talk about. And this could be short-term or long-term future hopes and dreams. So we want you to think a little bit, right, further ahead. So what do you hope continues in your or your loved one's life? So what is happening today that you want to see continued? So jot that down real quick.
I think that's an important one for as things change and as family members age that support the individual, to make sure that who you're passing the baton to has the same understanding of what's important.
And just as important, what do you hope they have more opportunities to do? And that could be something even as basic as being involved in more activities in our community. And the last question is, what would make you feel confident that they are living a fulfilling life? So what you just wrote down is going to give you some foundation to a vision statement, right, of what does a good day look like for me or my loved one. So I'm going to read just an example of some of the things that I had noted. So a good life for Logan includes spending time with the people who know him well, mom, dad, his sister Kendall, having music, art classes and cooking classes incorporated into his weekly schedule, and being part of his community in ways that makes him feel happy and safe. Also being connected with the people in his community. So again, very foundational, but we're starting a vision statement. So now we want to make sure that we are using our vision to connect supports. So think about what supports would help make this life possible. And that could be anything, right, from direct support professionals who are going to be working with your loved one or yourself. It could be community opportunities. And I think one that Kathy and I are going to focus on is going to be using person-centered tools, right, to make sure that a vision becomes a reality. A big part of this conversation also needs to be the support coordinators, right? The support coordinators are going to connect our vision to our supports needed. And all this would really need to be identified in the ISP.
And that's why it's really important to have a support coordinator that is listening to you, to your family member, to the support people around your individual, so that they are helpful in finding the supports and services that are needed to make that great life. One of the things that I think we've both found, is capturing that vision and capturing those things on paper and being able to have that as a center of a conversation has been very, very helpful. Filling out tools is not the mission. The mission is to use it as a reference, but to have put thought and time into it. So we're going to show some examples of how we've done that. And again, it varies. You do it the way that works for you. These tools are not essential to having a good vision. We've just found them to be helpful in a way to share it with a large group of people. My son has a lot of people around him, so we want to make sure everyone is on the same page.
So this is the first part of the one-page profile that I completed with the Community Living Education Project as we were exploring all options in community living for my son, right? When Logan was 21, I'm not going to go through the long history, but he did have a very complicated behavior support plan that needed a lot of support, and that's really the part that was being focused on by all the professionals in his life. And our family needed to learn to balance that conversation to make sure that we were talking about what brought Logan happiness and joy at the same time. So we completed a one-page profile with Natalie from CLEP, and in that one-page profile, we were able to identify what my son Logan likes and admires about himself, and also what the others who knew him best liked and admired about him. Isn't it bad? I have to use my glasses still. It's okay. We can stay here. Okay. I think one of the most important pieces that no one was speaking about is what was important to Logan, right? So we balanced the conversation of what is important to someone and what's important for someone to come up with a good life, right? If everything's balanced, if everything is on the side of important for, life is just going to be boring for all of us, right? So we figured out what was important to Logan. Again, those were the relationships that Logan has with people. Logan has strong interest around his schedule and preferred activities that he will show through different actions and also verbally what he prefers to do in life. We also talked about his holiday traditions because that is so important for him but not often talked about enough. We talked about music is a super strong driver for Logue, and what kind of music does he enjoy, and how could we maybe explore other opportunities in that area. And then also some areas of like favorite foods and favorite items that he always likes to have around him. Thanks. And then we also had to balance that part of the conversation with what was important for Logan. And again, that's the health and safety piece for Logue. And we wanted to make sure that we were really focusing on not only those supports that would need to be with him in a community, but we talked about the best approaches that people could take, right? Because when we're talking about someone's visions, we're talking about someone's wants, and people have preferred ways of being supported. So we stressed that. And then the hopes and dreams was super important because that was going to be driving our future visions in the ISP.
So this is one of the Charting the Life course tools that I've used with Michael, and this really goes to what's important now and what we're going to be doing in the future. And so it's called the Split Star. You see Michael's at the center, and it looks at personal strengths and assets, relationships, technology, eligibility services. That would go under the what's important for Michael, right? And what's important to Michael, and what we're looking to expand for him. So I think this really kind of puts it down and gives everybody a focus when they're talking about the plan and the future for the individual. There's always been a lot of conversation about, we just don't want this to be another piece of paper. And I'm going to just share that when I did get YCS to implement this, the first time they did implement it, they sent me home a form, told me to fill it out and send it back. And I called them and said, no. This is not how this goes. We need an IDT meeting. We're going to sit down with the team, with the people of the day program, all the people that are important to Michael and support Michael, including his sister, myself. I think you have to understand that this is a conversation. It all started when Michael first went into this particular setting. They said, we're going to do community, and we're all going to go to Quaker Bridge Mall, and we're going to sit on the bench. And I said, well, does anyone really enjoy that? Is that what they really want to be doing? I think we need to look at it individually, and I think that's the advocacy that has to happen, is that it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's your size and the next person's size, and they could be very, very different.
One of the benefits of using the person-centered tools is that when we were actually meeting with 12 different provider agencies throughout the state, trying to see which one was going to be the right fit for Logue, we quickly realized that some of the providers had a stronger focus of taking a more person-centered approach than others, and this really allowed them to also see Logan's interests so they can see who might be a good fit in regards to being housemates, right? And that could be whether you're self-directing or provider-managed settings, right? People self-direct, look for housemates. And are those people going to be compatible? So these tools really help share some of those details where it could be beneficial. And then we also share the one-page profile anytime Logan is going to a new activity. So if he's using through his goods and service budget, a new activity or going to the gym and having different people support him, this is a beautiful way so that they can learn a little bit about his interests, his hopes and dreams, his goals for the future, and that they could really tailor those experiences to be able to have Logan feel wanted and supported at the same time.
Okay.
So we want to talk a little bit about turning visions into supports. So again, right, someone has a team. That team is very broad quite often, but everyone plays a different role on the team. And we want to make sure that we're really highlighting how these visions have to align with the supports, and to do that, you need everyone at the table. So the person receiving the supports, again, always remains at the center of the planning process. And we want to make sure that when we are working together, that the families share insights about the person's preferences, their strengths, their routines, and how the person wants and needs to be supported. But we also want to make sure, again, that we're having the person's team in all environments share this information, because that's going to look different for everyone.
I think, too, I found it for my son important to give them a little bit of history. Things that he did when he was home. They were shocked recently to learn that he can bounce a basketball. So you could take him to a gym, and he will bounce a basketball, and he will enjoy that. I think they just thought, because of some of the physical considerations, that that was just something he wouldn't be able to do. So I think a little bit of history of what he has done and may not be doing now, but could be doing again, is important.
And we want to stress the support coordinator's role in all this, right? The support coordinator is the one who's going to be driving the plan, that's going to be able to identify staffing supports, the community opportunities that the person is looking to connect to, and help you explore new community opportunities. I know my son's support coordinator has actually shared so many resources with us that we just didn't even know was available, which grew our vision even more. And then we want to also talk about the goods and the services.
Yeah, I just want to point out that in terms of a support coordinator, it really is important to have somebody that's on the same page with you. And if you're finding it's just not the right fit, you can change that. So please, know that. So we're going to talk a little bit about working together to create a life of choice. Did we just do this? Am I doing this again?
No, that's
Okay.
good. So we want to make sure, again, everyone has a different role, but the families really keep the vision visible, right? So if we have a vision for someone and those supports haven't been put in place, or a plan hasn't been put in place, so that person can start receiving what they're hoping their vision is going to give them, the family is the one who's going to keep bringing that back to the table so often, right? We also have providers who are providing that, those daily life and life skills, right? But we also have the self-directed employees that are playing such an important role for people. Do you want to expand a little bit more?
No, I think the idea is to build a team. And, you know, I don't know if there's anybody on this call today that has individuals that are not 21 yet. This goes for your school team, too. You need to build a team, and you need to make sure that the people on the team are hearing the individual and hearing you. So we're going to go a little bit here to what this looks like in real life.
So we had the vision based off of Logan's interests that Logan loves music, right? He loves listening to music, he loves singing, he loves tapping to the beat on the table. So these were things that we were observing in him. Likes being active and engaged in a community. That was really important for Logan also. And
So these were the supports that you had to consider.
we had, I am so sorry, it is
No,
my
well,
vision.
you've got a music, so the idea was that he would get some music lessons or participate in a school music program, but then it's important to look at what supports were needed for Logan to be successful.
Exactly, right? So it wasn't just about the music teacher, the music school, right? Logan actually needs additional supports for him to attend these activities in a community. So a conversation we had with the support coordinator, they were able to put that in his plan. But transportation was another piece that we had to consider in this, right? So often forgotten about. So transportation to and from the music lessons that Logan showed an interest in taking.
So what does that look like in real life? So here's the outcome. What's going to happen for Logan?
So Log has been since for a couple years now. He's also, so he gained new skills in that. It's definitely increased his socialization and community connections. He started taking group lessons also, right? He started gaining an interest in different genres of music that I had never listened to, but we listen to every weekend now at my house as he tells Alexa what to play. He's also explored different interests, right? One of the music places actually had a sound booth. So he went in and would do some singing, and they would actually send him home with the CDs for him to share with others to listen to. And he's definitely gained confidence, but I think even more important, we have empowered him to have choice and control over the activities that he wants to do in his life, just like all of us have the opportunity to do. And I think it really comes back to sharing power with instead of power over someone, and empowering them to make choices for themselves with our support and guidance.
So there's always the question of, oh, there's a question
question?
back there.
Yeah.
Wait, Carrie's coming with the microphone. There she is.
My daughter is nonverbal and she has Down syndrome and autism and nonverbal. What is a typical day for your son Logan? Like what does he do every single day of the week? Basically, I want to know.
Is it okay if I jump in?
Yeah.
For here? So for Log, even though Logan lives in a provider-managed setting, we've been able to work with that provider to have a very unique day. For some people going to a day program, it's a fabulous option. It's what they love to do, right? And we honor and would support that. For Log, we made sure that and we tried a day program. I wasn't making that decision for him. He quickly made that decision for himself, though.
How did he make that decision?
Through his actions and behaviors, he let us know that that was just not the right fit for him at this time.
Did he give you there was,
I
you had
think,
trouble at home, in other words?
So no, not necessarily trouble at home. We have some people that knew him really well who attended that environment with him and were able to share his reaction to being there, his desire to want to leave early, things such as that. So we really have a very unique day for Logan, using his goods and services budget, a lot of natural supports in the community. So I can definitely connect with you after and share how we did
Okay.
that.
Thank
And we're
you.
going to hear
Thank you.
some more really good examples.
Thank you.
Finally, we just really wanted to talk a little bit about funding some of this. So whether the individual is in the supports program or the community care waiver, Medicaid will fund services like a day program, like SDEs, like where Michael lives. But they don't fund things like music lessons and swimming and cooking classes or whatever it is. That comes through a part of the budget called goods and services. So the division has put that program into place so that the individual can have that kind of choice and can make those type of activities, get to those type of activities that are important to them that would not be covered by Medicaid services. So again, it's critical to work with the support coordinator to make sure you access the goods and services portion of your loved one's budget. Because that's really, even though Michael's in a traditional provider managed setting, he goes to a day program, which is right for him. We actually found an amazing day program. But swimming is part of that, and that's not part of the day program. That comes out of his goods and services budget. We're now started up yoga again, so now I'm working with the yoga teacher to see that she'll accept the goods and services. So those are components that are not part of the traditional funding, but that are really, really important to your loved one's life. So I just want to quickly say takeaways. Person-centered planning works best when everyone is involved. All of the people that are part of that person's life should become part of the team, and their voice is important. The most important voice is the individual's voice. The approach can be used at any age. So I do a lot of advocacy for families who have kids with IEPs. This approach applies to an IEP. It applies to an ISP. It should be the individual at the center of it and not the program. And it really starts with articulating a vision, because you can't go somewhere if you don't know where you're going. So it is important to take that time, and I know time is everybody's worst enemy, but that time is really well spent to develop that vision so you know where you want to be. And only then can that circle of supports and services be developed that's truly individualized and lets that individual get to what is their best life. So with that, we're going to move on to the panel. So we'll go from there. And I'm going to stop my share so we can actually see the panel. Okay. All right, so, yep, Mary's coming. I see her. So, introduce all. Lost my, oh, here. You know what, yes, why don't you sit here for now, and, what was that? They're online, they're online. All right, so before we begin, I'm just going to let all the panel members introduce themselves. So I'll start with you, Mary.
Okay, Mary Canor. I live in Monmouth County. I'm part of Council 6. I have 3 adult children, 2 of whom use the community care program for their supports and services. Their names are Matt and Dan, and I'm going to be talking about them today.
All right, and Nancy?
I have 3 children. One who is in an assisted living, who lives in a home, group home, and the other one and she's severely disabled. And then I have another, a son on the spectrum, 35 years old, who still lives at home, and he is who I'll be talking about.
Okay, and Maggie?
I am Maggie Skokoza. I live in Blairstown up in Warren County. My son William is 29. He has Down syndrome. He is on the community care waiver, and I'm here to talk about the activities that he does and how we've utilized his budget with self-direction. And he's got a lot of good things going on that I'd love to share.
Great. So Mary, I guess we'll start with you.
Okay. What are these? Am I'm sorry, excuse me, I didn't get any organized.
Okay.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Do you want to go ahead or you want me to?
You go ahead, lead in, and
All right, so we're going to talk about a number of things in terms of what's made for an engaging life. So any of the panel members, when planning for services and supports, what strategies, tools, or approaches have you found most helpful in keeping the person's strengths and interests at the center? So
and then who would like to go first?
So which one of you like to jump in on that? What services and supports have you found to be most helpful, and how have you kind of put that together? I think it might be helpful too if you tell a little bit about the day of your loved one. Matt, you want to start? Yeah. Go
I can
ahead.
start on that if you'd like. What I can do is just share a little bit about Will's day and what that looks like. So we have two self-directed employees. One who's with Will 4 days a week for about 5 or 6 hours. What their day entails is, they go to the gym and work out. She works out with him. They'll do banking, errands, food shopping, things around town. They may go bowling or play mini golf if, the weather's nice. Will volunteers at a senior center where he goes and does activities with the seniors and serves lunch. He just started also delivering Meals on Wheels to 4 families once a week. He we just actually looked at a program called Green Vision on Friday. It's a recycling center, and they just opened up a location nearby. So he'll be doing that 1 day a week coming up next week. When he's not out with Sue, he has a plethora of virtual activities that he does through goods and services. He does on his day off, which is Monday, he has another SDE come for a few hours. And then he does music therapy, yoga throughout the week, math tutoring, speech, cooking class, an art class, 2 social groups, and he does an educational class with finding your individuality. And he has a little business that he does elderberry syrup and hand sanitizer. We've utilized his assistive technology through goods and services. And we also are linked with a provider agency that I put hours in addition to working as an SDE for him through Acumen. Yeah, that's pretty much his week. He plays pickleball. He does Special Olympics basketball. He likes to go for pedicures and Dunkin' Donuts, and he's busy. I have to have a big schedule, a whiteboard, and Alexa, the timer is going off all the time because I can't keep track of what he's doing. So yeah, he's a busy guy.
So just a couple of follow-up questions, and then we'll move on over to Nancy. But so what did you find the biggest barriers to creating this life for him?
I have to be honest. My biggest barriers were with public education. And I did a lot of advocacy then. I started a parent support group and a recreation program. So I became very resourceful out of necessity when he was in school. So for us, for me in particular, for the family, for everybody, the adult world has been so much easier. And I found that learning to be resourceful, I just got involved in the community. I kind of knocked on doors when we were looking for different jobs for him to pursue and sample. Um, we've been fortunate in that we've been able to maintain self-directed employees to work with Will. We had one unfortunate thing that one of his trusted employees we found out was using his debit card. So that was a really hard, difficult thing to go through. But we learned from that. So with the employee after that, we did a very detailed job description and save all receipts and kind of set boundaries. So throughout the last 8 years that he's been doing, in the adult world, it's been a learning process. So there hasn't been a lot of obstacles. It's been, honestly, I'm happy to say it's been relatively easy. I feel that we're finally able to do genuine person-centered planning and self-determination that I struggled so long with when he was younger. So it's not that many obstacles, to be honest.
That's really great to hear. Nancy,
Thank
do you
you.
want to tell us a little bit about, are you going to talk about Zach?
Yeah, I'll talk more about Zach. I can give you a little rundown on my daughter Annie. Annie, who is very disabled, nonverbal, ambulates with assistance. Um, she's a lot, and she lives in a group home, and she's been in a number of different situations. She was in New York City. We finally were able to find something appropriate for her in Old Japan, and she's now living there. She's she's doing great in the home and in the day program that she goes to now. Zach requires a much more creative approach. He's on the spectrum. He's 35 years old. He is athletic. He likes to be outdoors. He's a real outdoorsman, and he's a total foodie. And so we created, I think, what's working really well for him right now. He works 3 days a week at a Whole Foods doing food prep. He chops vegetables and roasts them and seasons them and roasts them, and then they go to the cook where he says to Zach, I need more cauliflower, and Zach has to like do these trays of cauliflower for him, and he loves it. He really loves it. He has been in that job now for 9 years, and recently he's had problems there. Staff changes, the people change at the job, and we had to add more support for him for a job coaching, so that they could extinguish some of the behaviors that they found difficult. It's not always an easy course, but he really likes it there, and it's worth it to him to put up with what he has to put up with. And really, what I think it is, it's just like a little bit less tolerance for some of his peculiarities. It's not like bad behavior, really. It's just peculiar, and they're not tolerating that as well as um, they used to. They used to really embrace it and enjoy it. What else is that? So Zach goes to a day program 2 days a week, and that's fine. That's enough for him for that kind of activity. And then he goes to Special Olympics basketball, which he's started doing this year and no, 2 years, and he really loves it. He's not that great at it, but I think it's teaching him really good skills of relating to others and passing the ball and looking for others around him. I think it helps him grow. He's a very, very good tennis player and plays on the Special Olympics, and he's done that now for like 14 years. And that's the team that he really bonded with. He loves the people there. That his teammates are really important to him. And what's nice is that the basketball team is comprised of a lot of the same people. So that's the strongest social connection he has with peers. Um, what else does Zach do? He's not a good speaker. His expressive language is not great. So we give him speech, and that comes out of his budget 2 times a week on Zoom. And he sets it up, and he does his speech with her, and he prepares for it. And as much as he hates to have to speak, he actually looks forward to it with her, because I think he actually likes that he has really good results when he's with her. I wish he could carry it through with us. What else does Zach do?
Question, Nancy, if I could.
Yeah, that's enough. Yeah,
You talked about the change in staff at Whole Foods, and I
yeah.
think that that's a really important point. Um, there was additional support needed, additional training.
Yeah.
Um, Did you find that there was a way to do that successfully? Or did you find that there were more barriers to that? And is there, if, I find myself, I'm a parent of a 40-year-old, sometimes thinking, if I could do this over or anticipate something, I would have done something differently. Is there something you can add about that? Because I think that's a really important point, that things were kind of motoring along just fine, and then we had new people to deal with, and these people didn't have the same mindset as the people that were there.
Right. Well, it was it was pretty bad. They put him on notice, um, and he's still on notice. He'll be on notice until the end of April. So I had to do something drastic, and I went to our support coordinator. And I said, we need to step up and we didn't have the money in the budget for it. So we had to like really play around to get him. We even went to DDD asking for more support for him. And we changed his job coach and we found a really good person that was already working with him as a DSP. And she was very good with him. And she's very good with the staff there at Whole Foods. And he's now in his last month of on that warning where if he does one more thing wrong for a whole year, if he does one more thing wrong, he would lose his job. It's incredible, right? And we're there, knock on wood, one more month, and then he gets a clean slate again. But they're actually appreciating Zach again, and no, we haven't extinguished all of the things that he does that are a little peculiar. He's peculiar. It is what it is. Aren't a lot of our guys and girls a little unique? That's what's fun about them.
Well, actually, we all have our peculiarities.
Yeah.
But I think the important thing that I'm hearing from that is that changing the person that was supporting Zach and that person being able to build a relationship with the people that Zach was working with
Mhm.
has been helpful.
Yes, she actually said, this is how you manage this. Don't boss him around. He should only be bossed around. I think in some ways people were taking advantage of him. They saw he's a fast worker. And they could say, Zach, you do this. And finally, she noticed, she said, he should not be taking direction from everybody. There was somebody there that could see that was going on. I couldn't do that. They wouldn't let me back there, and he wouldn't want me back there. And goodbye, Nancy. That's what he says to me when goodbye. So yeah, she was a savior. He's had a lot of luck in his life. He's had good people that have come at the right time. Even just getting the job, went to DVR, and they said let's put him in a training program so he'd get a food safety certificate. I actually asked them what possessed you. Nobody else recommended this for Zach, and he said I could just tell he was focused and he could sit in a meeting. We got lucky. Um, Somebody else would have said no. This is not appropriate for him.
I think that's important. I think, getting the right people and, having those constant discussions and really building a team.
Oh, and one more thing I want to let parents know. I'm not a pushy person. Be pushy. Push a little harder. When Zach got the job at Whole Foods, 6 months later, he still hadn't started working. They were new. They were just starting up in that location, and they kept putting us off and putting us off. I tried so hard. You gave him the job. Give him the job. Let him start. And they were holding us off. So finally, I called my husband in, and he went in with a friend of his, and the two of them together made it happen. For some reason, I couldn't make that happen. That component wasn't working for me. My husband had better skills in that area, and he started working. And 3 months later, the boss of the store came over and said, "He's a great worker."
Yeah. I think it's important to be assertive. and to kind of say what you need and not let people forget what they had promised to do. I'm going to turn it over to Mary a little bit now, and if you want to tell us a little bit about your son's day.
Sure. So I have two sons, Matthew and Daniel, and they both attend the same program. They go to a day program 4 days a week. On that fifth day is kind of like their Friday where they go get haircuts, they go to the barber, they go to the library. They also go to the library in the middle of the week too. It's a very important place for them. They also do their shopping. They go out with staff. They go to the gym. There's a number, oops, is that better? All right. There's a number of places they like to go in the community with their staff. They both have they are siblings, but they have very different affects and abilities. And Matthew's very high energy, likes to go and do, so staff can take him hiking or walking or back to the gym again, swimming. He likes to do a lot of things like that. Dan, on the other hand, has a lot of health issues. So we could be having a bad day and he just needs to stay home. Then there's days where he does like to go and do, and that's out to lunch and shopping, and they really love him at the library, so that's one of our main hubs in our community for my guys. What else?
Well, you know what, I'm just going to go through some questions, and any one of the panel members that wants to respond, I think that would be really helpful. I want to go back to the idea of training. Nancy hit on it a little bit with the people at Whole Foods, but also in terms of bringing on board direct support professionals, SDEs. What do you do in order to onboard them and to have them be part of this person-centered plan? How do you communicate? How do you make sure they know the individual in terms of what they want, what's important to them, but also in terms of keeping them safe and moving around the community? So I want to talk a little bit about how you bring in support coordinators.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah, Mary, if you want to start, that would be
Sure.
great.
So we've been directing their supports for over 20 years now. Matt and Dan live in their own home. We're in our 14th year where we direct it. So what we do, we interview at a neutral location. We interview as a herd, and we tell people that. It's my husband and myself, my daughter and her husband. And if they pass the first tests, we get a good feeling about how they're answering the questions, and we lay out the job expectations. Then we'll bring in the guys. But we don't do this in their home. We do this out like most of the time it's at a Starbucks. That's how we determine to bring people in. We also fully disclose there's cameras in their home, so when they are working one-on-one with our guys and we are not present, we have footage. And I said we fully disclose because we want people on their best behavior right out of the gate. So this is one of the important things that we do. And I really, and we have regular check-ins. So we'll sit down, we'll talk, what's working, what's not. And if something isn't working or we notice something isn't being done right, we try really hard not to shame people, but to say, look, this is how we do things. Here's a little different way you could try this. Or if Dan uses very few words to communicate, but he certainly will let you know when he's unhappy. And if I can tell when he's coming home or when I see him in his place, he's unhappy, we have a little conversation about what transpired. And rather than, again, shame them, teach them what works, what we've tried that works. And we go from there, And if I do hold meetings, we provide hospitality, some coffee, food, a little something, so just to make everybody feel welcome. And we have, we thank people because we really do appreciate when they do well with our guys, and we want to keep that going too, and we want an open dialogue. So.
I think that's really important. It's not an easy job, and people need to feel appreciated. So I think, that's really, really important. I also think what you said is important in terms of you want people to feel comfortable coming and saying, you know what, this is really not working right now. Can we problem solve this? I think sometimes when people work with our loved ones, they tend to hold that in and not make that a collaborative thing. So you want to really make that atmosphere, which is what you've done, that we're all talking and we're all, and understanding that sometimes things probably don't work perfectly for you either.
Correct. I make more mistakes than they do.
Well, Nancy or Maggie, do you want to comment? Maggie, you,
Sure.
your people are, your guys are in a house.
Correct.
Maggie, your individual's living at home, so do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I found staff for Will. We live in a very small community, very small rural farming community where everybody kind of knows one another. So been fortunate to find staff through word of mouth, local Facebook. With the exception of the one bad apple, we've had a lot of success with that. Um, Learning from that one experience too, I learned to kind of set boundaries because I tend with, them picking up Will and dropping him off. We spend a lot of time together. They'll be in the house sometimes. So I've kind of set boundaries with how much time in the house where I'll now just, okay, beep the horn and send him on his way in the morning. So how to set boundaries just to kind of protect myself because the other people were becoming more like too familiar and almost like family members. So that was a learning lesson. The woman we have now is lovely and she has a lot of experience. So it's a good relationship. I have outside of the mandatory training, I had asked her to do training at the Bugs, excuse me, Bug Center for employment specialist training. And I paid that cash, took care of her for that. So she did that training. Um, we pay her the maximum hourly rate because we want to keep her with us and she's worth it. And we also will pay cash weekly to cover any type of expenses. And when Will goes to get his pedicure, we treat her to a pedicure. So we take good care of her. We meet monthly. We'll have just meetings where we just talk about, how are things going? I mean, we see her every day. So if things come up day to day, we can talk about it, but kind of have more formal monthly meetings just to check in and see how everything's going. Um, yeah, another thing that I wanted to say, we were talking about not, to advocate and push a little bit. It's like, don't be afraid to ask. I've learned that in this small community, a lot of the job opportunities that Will has had, and it's mostly been volunteer training to see what he likes, what he doesn't like. It's been a lot of knocking on doors and, Will and I going to a business and saying, hey, we introduce ourselves and, we're looking to try out some different, jobs. And with the exception of one, everybody welcomed him and it all was a good experience. We did find during COVID, for me, I always was about employment, employment, employment. You are going to work like your brother works, and you're going to get a job, and you're going to make money, and you're going to get out. Well, guess what? That's not working for him. He does have some anxiety. We found due to some medical things, he fatigues easily. So after COVID, I kind of sat down and thought, I just really want him to be happy. And that's when, we kind of restructured what he was doing and he loves working at the senior center. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's so used to people helping him, where this gives him the opportunity to help others. So, yeah, I kind of went off on some other things, but
I think the idea of boundaries is important. I think, when somebody is, you're seeing them every day and they're part of what's going on in your home or, connecting with your son, I think those boundaries are really important. And I think setting expectations from the get-go
yeah.
is really, really critical. You can't expect people to know things that you don't tell them. And the other thing I really want to focus on that you said and Nancy also said is you have to ask. Don't think that something is out of reach until you bring it up to the team and talk about how you might be able to implement it. So asking is really important. And I think sometimes families, and again, I see this going into IEP meetings and I see this going into ISP meetings. I think sometimes people go in focused on the services. They go in focused on thinking, well, that's just not going to be possible, so I'm not going to ask. I think that's where the vision comes in, and that's why that vision statement is so important, because you really want to have that vision statement clear as to what would make a great life. And it might be a work in progress. That doesn't mean that great life is going to happen immediately. It might be a little bit of a work in progress, but I think that that's really, really important. Nancy, did you want to add anything to bringing people on board with Zach?
I have only one person that is his job coach, and she's actually his DSP. So she comes to the house and they cook together because Zach loves to cook, and they cook in the air fryer. And the goal is that eventually he'll, cook for himself because he has high expectations for what his food should look like. Um, and he's determined to, have his okra and, weird things. He wants to try everything. So they experiment in the air fryer. Yeah. Okra air fryer food isn't as bad as you would think. um, she's a little different than me. She's a little bit more of a disciplinarian than I am. I think it's working for Zach. I think he's flexible enough to deal with that. I'm a mush. Um, so it's been a challenge, but she's obviously doing the right job because she's helped him hold on to his job. So yeah, sometimes you embrace people that don't have your style because they don't have your style, and it's good.
I think that's such an important point, and I find that in my own journey with Michael. Just because people don't do things the way I would do it, but they get to the same goal, that's fine. And I think we as family members need to learn to be a little flexible in how people interact. And that's important to the individual, because we all need to be able to deal with people who might approach things differently than all of us do, than you would. So I think that's a really important point. That's been a big learning lesson for me, I will fully admit.
I got one thing to add to all this is the expectations piece. I actually had to let somebody go and I blamed myself. I said, listen, this isn't working out and it's my fault because I didn't make my expectations clear. And I thought I had, but that was because he kept canceling. And my son, he was working with at the time, was Matthew. Matthew, to this day, is still about routine, and things happen on a schedule, and if that schedule's messed up, that really ruins his day. And he looks forward to it, and he's always on to the next thing. When he finishes something, he's on to the next thing. And this guy kept canceling, which really caused for a rough time in our house. This is before he was out on his own with, living in his own place with his brother. But that's how I let him go, and I said, it's my fault, but this isn't working because now he's having a bad weekend because you yet again canceled, and that's not working. So from here on out, and I really do try to lay out what I need from them for them, but we as family members don't always remember all the nuances of our children and our loved ones, so just take lots of notes, however you do it. I'm a big pen and paper, but, don't use that notes thing on my phone yet. But
Oh, that thing's great.
We will do notes every morning on Will's phone. We use notes to put his day and the checklist because a lot of times he can be forgetful, leaves his wallet somewhere or a jacket. So everything that he needs to remember goes on that list and he checks it off every single day. It's really important to have that routine.
I love my notes app. Yeah.
Yeah.
Melanie?
And Kathy, if I could, I think one of the things that's a little bit different about my family is that Logan does live in that provider-managed setting. But as much as he lives in a provider-managed setting, and we have the people from his residential provider who provide a lot of the day support hours out in the community, we have also hired 2 individuals through a hiring agency that we've identified that Logan just really enjoyed being around. So there are 2 college students who will join Logan at the gym every day for 1 hour every morning. Mentally, that's a beautiful benefit for Logan. But one of the things that we know is that Logan doesn't want us talking about him in front of him, especially, right? But and we want to recognize that and honor that for him. But we have a lot of conversations with these people prior to them stepping into playing that role. And one of the things I think that's been really helpful is for them to go to the gym with a current person who's supporting him there for modeling purposes, to see those do's and don'ts. And then they'll stay a little bit, a half hour after the first few sessions, to ask the questions that they have of why did you do it that way? Why are you using this language, right? To learn about him. And then also we rely heavily on the staff from his support team from the residential provider. They're the one who is actually taking him to his goods and services activities. And the one-page profile has been a beautiful tool, again, for us so that they can learn about his interests, know things to talk about, how to best support him. But the staff from the group home also provide modeling and coaching to the people at the goods and service opportunities so that they understand best practices and what makes Logan most comfortable and the best way to support him.
I think that's great. I'm going to pose another question to the panel. In terms of your support coordinator, friends, family support groups, how have they been instrumental in helping you achieve the great life for your individuals? Anyone?
I'll go if
Okay.
you're comfortable.
Yeah, Melanie's
Then I'll
going.
put down the mic. I have to say our support coordinator has been with us for almost 7 years now and has been truly a leader in the process for us. So one of the things he has never done is just come to me and said, hey, this service is in your area, you know. What he has always done is what's Logan interested in, and let me find resources, services, you know, to support him to get engaged. Also identifying things in a community that don't necessarily have to go through the budget, right? Logan loves going up to the firehouse, loves it. His biggest fascination are fire trucks. Can tell you everything about them. But Logan now is working at the community garden, right, on the weekends with me. I'm not a paid support for Logue, right? He's home with mom on the weekends, but I'll take Logan on the weekends to that community garden, and we then go up to bring what he grows up to the firemen, right? So that opportunity actually came from a friend. The ladies that I work alongside with at the Community Living Education Project, I have to say, I think we really feed off of each other's experiences, and we learn a lot from each other, right? We're learning a lot from the other families that we're working with on the supports and services out there based on their lived experiences, things that we might want to consider trying. But yeah, it really has been a full team approach in planning for a good life, a person-centered life for Logue.
Okay. Does anybody else want to jump in on the role of the support coordinator or how community or friends or family have been helpful?
I can speak to that. The support coordinator that we have now, we've had her for about 3 years and we love her. She's fantastic. She's a great communicator, stays in touch, does what she says she's going to do. The other piece of that is I think that all the activities that he does were already set in motion before I met her. So there's not really much that she's done on that end. I'm sure if I asked her to help, she would, but it's already been established. It took a lot of trial and error to find, a appropriate, schedule that Will, enjoys. Friends, I don't know what I would do without my fellow parents in this. They've been just the most support, just to have somebody to sound, a sounding board. So yeah, there's a lot of support there.
I'm going to do a little commercial for the Regional Family Support Planning Council. Please join your local council, because that's where you're going to find other family members who you're going to be able to bounce things off and share your successes and hear their successes. And I think that kind of collaboration and communication is really helpful. I'm going to go with another question here. What is one lesson you've learned that could help other families or professionals navigate this? I'm going to expand that question. If you don't know, before I retired, ran a middle and high school for students with autism. I know there are some people in this room that know that well. What do you wish the schools would be teaching? What would you say to the families who are now in transition? What would you want to say to them that they should be pushing the school to do better? Loaded question.
That is a loaded question. I think it's really important that they have a good transition program. I can speak to our school. As much of a struggle as it was then. Will's older brother is now the assistant principal at the same school. And it's come full circle because now he's a special educator, now administrator. So he has hired a full staff to work the transition program. They're having a big transition fair next weekend. Gosh, I could go on. Transition. When I first started, I worked for a support coordination agency a couple of years ago as a transition specialist, talking about, making sure that when you apply to DDD and you do the NJCAT, that you do it appropriately and then you fill it out properly and that you make sure you have all of the diagnoses and not just one, because otherwise you're not going to get the funding that you'll need to sustain activities and programs. Yeah, gosh, that is a loaded question because it's so lacking, I find, in so many districts. I think it's important to make sure that you have that you push for community-based instruction and that you have people who are trained to do that. And yeah, that's a real important time to be pushy. I always felt early intervention and transition to adulthood were two of the most important areas for our kids.
I can also say that community-based instruction can take many forms, and I think families need to push for true community-based instruction, which is regularly scheduled and maintained, and that is, again, individualized to what that student likes and what that student will hopefully be doing once they graduate. Does anybody else want to comment on that?
I will.
Okay.
Zachary did go to a school where they did a lot of training, and Kathy had something to do with that.
It was my school.
And Zach got out. He worked at Applebee's. He worked at Inglewood Hospital, and he learned, routine and getting a job done and working fast. And it was, I think, a real precursor to his success in working now in real life, and getting a salary. And it was probably one of the most important things he did. Very, very critical.
I think too, if I could go back and do over what I did when I was at the school, I would work more extensively with families to develop their vision and have that articulated and have that ready to go. Because again, I think you have to know where you want to go in order to get there. So one last question, because we're just about at time. If you could change one thing to make person-centered planning more accessible and effective, what would it be? Another.
Have it be a priority throughout our system.
Yeah.
From the bottom up to the top down. DHS, DDD, EDS, everywhere. It's got to be a priority. It's got to be. And it's papers. Right now it's words on paper. We need it to be a priority. Because if we're going to actually implement it, then people are going to have these lives we're talking about. The good life.
Mm-hmm. I think that's exactly where I would have gone with it also. It's one thing to go through the process of person-centered planning, having the conversations, documenting, and it's another thing to actually have it implemented right? It's not something that we should have that conversation once a year at the ISP meeting. It should be ongoing, right? Again, to keep going back to the one-page profile, but that document, we update throughout the year. And then we're resharing that document with the people who are interacting and engaging with Logan in the community. So I think that's really where it goes to. It's making sure that that document is front and center, whatever document you're choosing, and that it is being honored and implemented.
It's a living document, and I think one of the things that the council is very involved with the Division of Developmental Disabilities is there is a state work group for person-centered planning where we've brought together school district people, providers, agencies, parents, families, individuals, all coming together to discuss how we can bring person-centered planning to families from the beginning. And that through our community of practice at the council, we recently did person-centered planning for families who have kids coming out of early intervention and moving into preschool. Because if we can start that mindset earlier, it's going to filter up all the way up through the process. With that, I would like to open it up to questions, and we can all the panelists can respond to the questions.
Kathy, and also you can check the questions submitted from virtual attendees in Q&A.
In Q&A, okay, I can do that.
Well, I do have 4 questions on the Q&A
Oh, I think
that I've
Dottie's
been
got
tracking.
that.
All right. The first question, I have a parent whose child likes to see shows. Can they fund that through goods and services?
That one I don't know the answer
Yeah.
to.
Bill?
Yeah,
Bill or
Alicia. Where's
We
Alicia?
have support coordinators in the room.
We do have a support coordinator here. Not to put you on the spot, but
Okay, the DDD funding will not fund anything that is strictly entertainment.
Yeah.
So you would have to pay for the shows out of your SSI money or SSDI, whatever it is that you happen to be getting. They will fund staffing to go with you.
Yes.
They will fund transportation to take you to and from the show if you don't have the staff transport you, but they won't pay for the actual ticket.
Thank
Okay.
you, Alicia. I'm going to read the question, and I think Mary has answered parts of this, but I'll read it just in case I'm reading it that I misunderstand it. How much time is spent on activities, support coordination, programs, and providers? Have you made mistakes? How have they been corrected? And is it more, or is it more coordination and checking on how things are going?
Mistakes? Heck yeah. With my guys, they don't exactly tell you what they like and don't like, and we have to discover that and figure that out. So organized sports, ask my husband, epic fail. The soccer field did not attract my guys at all. It's a perfect place for tantrums. One had a tantrum, one took off for I don't know where. He caught him. But then it was also, again, we learned from that and go like, okay, now what? And that's where we actually went to the local library. And my library in our town has a very high ceiling, so everything echoes. So I actually approached the librarians and I said, look, we'd like to try to get the guys here because they love books and they love videos. So, but it may be loud. And they just said, who cares? Bring them. So we did. And to this day, and this was back over 20 years ago, they are still going. It's more like 25 years ago. They are still going. The librarians have changed hands. There's still a couple original staff. But they know when they see Matt and Dan, and especially if one of them is having a tough time waiting, if there's a lot of people in the checkout line, they part the Red Sea for us, and we get our own little checkout line so they can get out with their dignity and not have a meltdown because they're waiting too long. So, and that goes to that ask. Don't be afraid to ask. It was a little uncomfortable at first, And some of the situations were tough that we've been in over the years. You know, we've had meltdowns in many public places and difficulty getting out of them. So, but learn from it. My best advice is to learn from it and then adapt where you have to so your kids can have, or your loved one can have, the best experience and make it a positive thing for them.
Yeah, local libraries are fantastic.
Yes.
They generally
They
are
are a godsend.
manned by people
Have been for us.
who care,
Yes,
open to
they
things.
really do.
The third question, again, directed to you, Mary. Can you talk a little bit more about how you set boundaries for your employees so that they don't cross the line and become family members?
And that's hard because we have some longevity with staff, but it is those regular meetings when we're having conversations, we just kind of bring up some things that can reinforce the boundaries that are in place. Because, you know, my guy's house isn't a place for them to just lay down and look on their cell phone. They've got to be doing things, maintaining their home. They should be going out and doing things in their local community. And that's, you know, what our focus is on with them. And we keep revisiting that. So, and then I have, you know, like I said, I have fully disclosed the cameras. So everything stays up front and honest.
Okay.
Maggie, do you want to address that a little bit too? Because you talked about boundaries as well.
Yeah.
So, what in the past we would have when Will was getting picked up in the morning, the person would come in the house and sit at the kitchen table and wait, you know, while Will was maybe packing up his backpack. So we immediately, with this present staff member, is that we don't do that. Like I said, you know, you beep the horn, he'll be ready, wait a few minutes if you need to. When he comes home, just make sure somebody's here, you know, kick him out the door, you know, like have him just come to the house. So we limit the amount of time that she's in the house with us. There was no document through self-direction where you would have a job description. So I made a job description that we follow and that I gave to her right away. So it was more formal. It's like, okay, I find that with self-direction and going through the, you know, acumen, being my husband's the employer. I know this is a whole other topic, but my husband's the employer of record. And so it's hard sometimes with that type of situation. So you have to kind of make it more formalized by adding, you know, the job description and just setting boundaries. And sometimes there was recently where I'll say, look, if you are out with Will and you're at Rite Aid or wherever, if you need to pick something, you know, I'm okay with that. You know, I don't that's okay. But there was one time where she was, you know, she texted me, hey, I need to run a couple of errands. I was like, no, that's not okay. You know, this is Will's time. So yeah, it's hard sometimes when you find somebody that you really like and you trust, but then you have to be the boss. It can be difficult, but you have to work through it and just know that, you know, what you're doing is best for your son or daughter.
Right. For the panel, how do you handle behavior disorders when or if your person has an uncontrolled behavior or outburst in the moment?
I can answer that. We try to work towards what I said before, small victories. So anywhere where if they're having a tough time, we try to get get them out of the situation as quickly as possible for their dignity. You know, because they're not at their best self. They have a lot of good things about them. It's just unfortunately they're having a tough day. So we try to exit stage left as quickly as possible, just get them out of there, and then we may or may not, we'll go review like what went wrong, what was the trigger, what set them off, or what happened. And it may just be, I know one Christmas we thought we were doing the right thing. We went to look at Christmas lights and my son melted down in the car. They love to do that, by the way. Holidays, too, are very big for my guys. And he just completely melted down, and then I felt his forehead, and he was burning up. So he was sick. So we didn't even, but he doesn't tell us he's sick. He wanted to go look at Christmas lights. We didn't pick up on any of the symptoms right away, and then he just wasn't feeling well. So sometimes there is an underlying cause for that behavior that's such as simple as they're getting sick and they don't feel well. So to discover where the problem started, get them out of there, and then maybe try it again in just smaller amounts of time, because sometimes we want to go for the day someplace. Sometimes you need to only go for half an hour just to see if it's going to work, and they could leave feeling good about themselves. So.
Okay, John had a follow-up question about timing. How much time does your husband take, or whoever is managing the program, take doing the work for Acumen? I stopped after 35 hours trying to register STEs with Acumen. Was that your husband's experience also?
Before we answer that question, I just, for everyone's, so everybody's on the same page, Acumen is the fiscal intermediary that pays for self-directed services. So if your individual is self-directing and you're employing an SDE, Acumen is the fiscal intermediary that you have to go through. And they are a new fiscal intermediary this year. It was a different one who was not so great. And there's also some bumps in the road here. So now I'll answer the question.
I'm going to Mel answer that.
So can you read the question one more time?
Yes. No, it's a
listening to
question of
Kathy.
timing and the challenges with Acumen. And this person has spent 35 hours already.
The administrative time is what you're talking about.
It's the administrative
Just enrollment.
time.
Just enrollment?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it's
Just
more
enrolling.
enrollment, yeah. Because I know a lot of people who are in
Yeah.
exactly the same position. And
abs-
there is a way to get to, there's a helpful email, which I don't know if I have permission to share, but if you send your email to Kyoko, we'll get back to you with the helpful email.
Yeah, because I'll be honest, my husband does the Acumen. And between the two of us, we play very different roles. I do the scheduling for Logan's activities. He does the paperwork. Thank goodness.
That's a good-
So,
yeah,
with that being said, I know we really did not, we were one of the lucky ones, right? And I hear that there are quite a few people that got through pretty seamlessly. We were one of those families. And primarily the way we use Acumen is for really just our goods and services for Logue. And so for us, we haven't had a challenge. And once he got enrolled, it's been actually pretty quick for us. But I know that's not the case for all the families. I would definitely lean on your support coordinator to get those contacts of who you can reach out to get support, whether through DDD or Acumen directly. And
Okay,
share your experiences.
I think that's all the questions that
I
we
think-
have. Oh, I'm sorry. John did have one follow-up comment. He went to Easter Seals as an alternative to Acumen. And there are,
Yes.
actually, if one of you guys want to explain the two different models between Easter Seals and Acumen.
Yeah. Well, you got to get a microphone.
Hi, I'm Bill England. I'm the president of Disability Services and Advocacy, the support coordination agency that hired Alicia, and Alicia is one of our support coordinators. Anyway, the Easter Seals model is agency with choice, which enables Easter Seals to provide benefits to their employees if they work full-time. And they do get additional benefits even if they work part-time. They get time off and things along that line. So there's an additional cost associated with using that model as the fiscal intermediary. But it performs the same way in the sense that they perform the payroll function and they can also hire goods and service providers to bring them in. But you have to also be an SDE through Easter Seals in order to use the goods and services there. So you have to have both. But it's a little more expensive, but you do get benefits paid through Easter Seals if you're working full-time. And so that is one of the advantages. It's a lot more expensive when you have the full benefit package, however, but sometimes that's needed in order to retain the staff. So it's up to the families and the budget constraints as to whether that works for them or not.
I do want to point out that Kyoko has put together a very, very nice sheet on resources, the goods and services data, community vendor list available through Easter Seals and available through Acumen. I think those are all the questions, but I did want to
Hold
say,
on, Daddy. I just want to elaborate on one of John's original questions. Is he was talking, he wanted to talk about time, and you guys talk a lot about you meet your support coordinators, you meet with providers, you meet with your job, and there's families that have full-time jobs that they're doing inside of this kind of extra full-time job. So I think he wanted to talk a little bit about how you kind of manage your time between your personal life and then working on coordinating all these services and supports and meeting everyone and then also doing all the other stuff. So I think that was what he was also trying to ask initially.
I haven't counted. I'll be honest, it's a big part of my week. So it's just depending on what's happening. Like, we just went through a whole thing with Dan's health where we spent a lot of time in the hospital, in and out of the ER, and some staffing schedules with that. And I have someone that's like a lead staff that helps me with the scheduling. But sometimes, some weeks more than others, if I can put it that way. And I know we were all just talking about like what families have to do on a regular basis. Like, if they do live on their own, they need to do their rental subsidy and their SNAP benefits and these other things, or utility assistance. And it's just a lot of different times of year. I have more paperwork on my plate because I am doing it for two. And I have two plans that we do and we work on, and they're two very different guys. So it does take a few hours. I'd say in average a couple hours a week if most of the year. But it's a labor of love. I love to do it. They've had they're living their best lives. So we're quite, it's okay with us to do that.
Maggie or Nancy, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I would like to comment. I feel the same way. I spend a lot of time organizing and, exploring things and researching, but I love it, because I see what he's doing. He has such a full life and he's very happy and not a lot of stress, so I don't mind doing it. The other thing about Acumen that I wanted to mention is that because we do mostly self-direction, the majority of Will's budget goes through Acumen. So I am also employed as a self-directed employee. So, I am getting paid to do this for him. And then to talk about somebody's question before about paying for like shows, things like that. So when I'm getting, deriving an income for working with my son, a lot of that money goes back to him in one shape, whether I'm putting money in his wallet for, going out to lunch every day and shopping and, paying cash for his other SDE for gas and lunch and other things like that. So just so parents know that they can work as an SDE or a DSP if you choose to go with a provider agency. And it was tedious. It was tedious, the onboarding in the fall with Acumen, but I haven't had any problems. It's been relatively, stress-free, no problems at all with it.
Yeah, I will also say about Acumen, Michael uses it for goods and services. I don't even know how I got onboarded, but I did. But his provider is getting paid on a regular basis, which was part of the problem with the previous fiscal intermediary. So that is a good thing. So Dottie's going to close us up, but before we do that, I just want to say a great big thank you to Nancy and to Maggie and to Mary and to Melanie for giving us their time and sharing their stories and answering these questions, because I do really believe that we all do learn from each other, and I think hearing what you've done has been really, really helpful. So thank you so much for participating in this.
And I did want to share, I should have said it before, but the chatter, the Q&A, filled with comments and how really helpful you guys have been and the participants have been.
Great.
So I did want to just take a minute to talk about a little bit of advocacy. This week, our new governor presented her budget, and there are some things that I just want to make sure that our community knows about that addresses disabilities. Can we flip the page? Some of the numbers: the total budget was $60.7 billion. The Division of Developmental Disabilities will see an increase of $154 million. But it's important to note that this does not include any new programs. It also doesn't cut any new programs. It's really just enough to keep the lights on and to keep the operation going. The budget, in the budget in brief, it does say that it provides funding for the Office of the Ombudsman, which has been really important to a lot of our community. But I don't want to just pass over that point because there's a little bit more than what's in the budget brief. Is it possible? All right.
Thanks, Dottie. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Christine Bachter. I'm the Deputy Director of the Ombudsman's Office. So I worked closely with Paul Aronson for the last 6 years. I was the first person that he hired to support his operation. So I did want to just talk about this because there's been a lot of questions in the last 2 months since he departed about how we're operating. And at this point, 60 days in, Governor Sherrill has yet to appoint an ombudsman. So in my discussions with Governor Sherrill's office, they are aware of the importance of the role. They are looking at applications. So there does need to be an appointment at some point. So yes, the office will be funded in this budget. What isn't readily apparent in the budget in brief is how much is actually being funded. So I did reach out to fiscal partners in the last week. It is a flat budget for the office. So there are some concerns that I have about that I'll be working with fiscal partners in the governor's office, because a flat budget for the third year in a row doesn't account for additional administrative responsibilities that every state government has. All of our government offices have a language access requirement that isn't funded in this budget. So we have to put documents in seven different languages. So that could potentially be a $40,000 or $50,000 line item in a $591,000 budget. It also doesn't allow for the replacement of the ombudsman's vehicle, which could rapidly change the way this office has delivered services. So again, there is funding. It is flat. I'm hoping that there's going to be some opportunity to renegotiate that so that when an ombudsman is onboarded, that person is going to have an operation that's going to be sustainable. So I think we just need to be watching this as the weeks kind of unfold, and as the legislature starts to hear testimony. It might be really important for all of you to just be watching that.
Okay, thanks, Christine.
Just so you're aware, we fall under the Treasury Department. We do not fall under the Department of Human Services. So when that detail comes out, you want to be looking under the Treasury Department.
Okay, great. There is a line item for extraordinary special education that is funded flat, so it's the same thing as last year. Can we flip? Right. So where are we? March 10th, the budget was introduced. All through the spring, the legislature will hold hearings, and they'll debate and things will get jockeyed about. But just so you all know that is part of the process. June 30th is the statutory deadline for the legislature to pass the final budget, and July 1st, the fiscal year 2027 begins. If we can flip. Okay, so what do we do in the meantime to make sure that our part of the budget doesn't get cut? Call, meet, email your state legislature. It's important that they know who you are, that you are in their district. You can find how to contact them through this link. Tell them how important the program is, and that you, your loved ones, and your friends are watching this. And then again, always end on a positive note. Thank you for their support, and that they are also important to you. Just a couple of things just to put the budget in perspective that would be helpful to know. A number of states including the ones you see listed here, have already discussed and/or announced cuts to their disabilities programs. One state said that they were shocked at how quickly they went to the disabilities line item. So New Jersey being able to hold the disabilities funding flat is probably the best we could hope for. The other thing that you should know about is, as of January 2026, there are 9 states who have filed a lawsuit challenging the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services integration mandate, the right to be in the community. And that is something that I didn't expect to see, because that is the law that ever since for a number of years, our people have had the right to live their lives in the community. That is being challenged. So just thought y'all need to know, this is, Governor Sherrill has made it very, very clear that she does not support that, and that's not where New Jersey is going, but it's just important to know that that's what's happening. That's all I have.
I'm going to give one more commercial. Get involved with your Regional Family Support Planning Council on the local level, because we are working to advocate for all of these things, and your advocacy and your voice is critical.
So Dottie or Kyoko, would the council be putting out clear, plain language, the anticipated effects, that positive or negative, that the budget may have as it's moving forward? And also, is there a way, I know we're not telling anyone how to advocate or what to advocate for, but is there a way that we can help people put their advocacy together, down on paper, if they decide to send an email, anything like that? Do we have resources?
Do you mean like a form letter or something that people
Sort of,
could
just
use?
to help, like, outline, fill in the blank kind of things that we can share to make it a little bit easier, just some, samples.
That's
But
a really good idea. I think
think
we should do that.
and then having really easy to read language that's understandable by all of what the proposed budget will and will not be able to possibly offer as things are progressing, I think will be helpful for the community also.
I think those are all really good ideas, and after a quick discussion with everybody, we'll probably do something.
Sorry to add extra work, because I know you guys are exhausted,
no.
but
All right,
I think
let me
right
just
now
make
that's
this
probably
clear.
a really good, right after hearing some of the comments.
And that's true, but let me make this really clear. The people who are really doing the lion's share of this work are Kyoko and Carrie, because they do everything, and they know everything.
Dottie, can I just add something? This is Bill England from Disability Services and Advocacy. We're a support coordination agency. Support coordination agencies have only received 3 budget increases in 12 years. The last budget increase was 0.5% last year. There is no plan in the budget right now to increase reimbursement for support coordination agencies. So I feel really strongly that this is a miss. And I do believe it's a miss because the state, by privatizing case management with support coordination, actually saved $67 million this year. If the state had paid for state workers to do the work, it's $135 million. 50% reimbursement is now given by the federal government for the support coordination services. Therefore, $67 million is being saved by having privatized support coordination. And I think DDD should be able to find $4 million out of that $67 million savings to give a 3% rate increase for support coordination. So I just want to highlight that, make you guys aware of it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be testifying.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a bad budget environment.
No, but I think I'm glad you said something, because we've said over and over again on this panel even how key the job of the support coordinator
Well, that's
is.
what I feel too.
Yeah,
If
and even,
done correctly, it is absolutely critical to
Sure.
to a successful life.
and even January, even the beginning of this year, there have been more training requirements for support coordination. So, it's a very critical job. I did want to just say one more thing, as long because I have the thing in my hand. I wanted to thank the gentleman who started off the public comments because our people do get a lot of services, but they are so able to give back to the community. They need to feel value in their lives. I know that when I go through a review of my daughter's personal plan, I'm going to emphasize that they need to be able to feel like they're doing something and not just having things done for them. Okay. Is that, oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to know if any of this,
Oh, Carrie's right there.
I just wanted to know if any of the slides that were shared will be sent via email to access
Yes.
for those of us that were in attendance. Thank
Yes, yes. It all goes on our YouTube channel also, doesn't it? Yes.
That 9 states you mentioned, is that based on, is that a suit against Olmsted?
Pretty much, yeah. It is basically a suit against Olmsted, because Olmsted was the ruling or the law that required people be in the community. So yes, in common language, yes. Right. So I guess that's it.
Thank you, everybody, for your participation, and we hope to see you again.